You guys, anybody watch that? God damn, that dude was talking and like broke me up. He was like, I watched the guy pull out his eyeball.
It has 23 hours. It was very meaningful. We were doing it in solidarity with people all across the country in the lead up to the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing this morning on the use of solitary confinement in our federal prisons. We've yet to see what's coming out of that committee. We called this rally today to draw attention to the many failures of the prison industrial complex, specifically the ineffective and torturous practice of solitary confinement. We're also here to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the custody of the state. Your calls for humane living conditions and an end to abuses have not gone unheard. We brought a few people out today that can speak farther on a lot of these issues and do a better job than I can. So I'm going to introduce Josh from the Richmond chapter of Spark.
As you may be aware, we were pretty heavily involved in supporting the hunger strike of prisoners at Red Onion State Prison, who are definitely facing isolation and sensory deprivation torture, and have been for years. Unfortunately, probably will continue to face it for years until we build up the sort of mobilizing and organizational momentum that's necessary to actually, force the improvement of these conditions, which I'm still pretty far away from. But I guess I'd sort of just like to start things off by briefly giving a brief historical context of solitary confinement, or as I think you could more accurately term it, isolation and sensory deprivation torture. In Western countries, modern isolation torture and modern isolation units were actually first developed not in the United States, but in West Germany. And they were developed for a very specific reason, which was to isolate, control, and psychologically and physically destroy political prisoners who were involved in resistance struggles in West Germany and also supporting national liberation struggles that were ongoing at the time, like those in Vietnam. And later on, in the 70s and 80s, these same methods were introduced in the U.S., initially in federal facilities like Marion. But now it's spread everywhere, both federal and state systems. And I think, and it's a pretty famous quote, as one of the early wardens of Marion said, the purpose of these type of conditions is to control revolutionary attitudes in the prison system and in society at large. So I think it's important to keep in mind these techniques of isolation torture and sensory deprivation torture are actually very effective at what they're intended to do. They're not intended to rehabilitate, and they're not intended to reform people. What they're intended to do is they're intended to destroy people who resist the system. And if you look at the prison system, first thing, almost all political prisoners end up in isolation conditions and in segregation units. And second thing, even prisoners who you may choose not to classify as political, the prisoners who end up in these units, whether Red Onion or Pelican Bay or wherever, are there because of the fact that, in most cases, because they've become politically conscious and because they've been organizing people. Like, that's the case with all the people we've been in communication with over the years at the Supermax facilities in Virginia, and I think that's the case countrywide. So I think what we really need to remember is that the issue of isolation torture and sensory deprivation torture isn't really an ethical issue, it's a power issue. The people in charge of this society, it's a technique they use, and it's a very effective technique that they use to break resistance to their rule and to their power. And they're going to keep on using and applying that technique until we organize a movement that's actually powerful enough to force them to stop doing it. And so I think that's what we need to stay focused on. And now I'll just hand the mic over to Kwame from the November Coalition.
Greetings. Hotel. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I'd like to thank the organization for inviting me to come out here and speak. I'd like to first of all give thanks to the Most High for allowing me to be here today, and my ancestors who guide me on a daily basis. And I can definitely talk about this torture system that they have called isolation. Some of us call it the SHU. It's called a special housing unit. And I mentioned that word because shoe is also a Kemet word also. The exact meaning escapes me at this time, but it's a pretty torturous ordeal to go through when you're locked up for 23 hours a day and you have no contact with any other human being. You are fed your food through a hole in a door, like some type of animal in a cage. You have no access to a television. If you're lucky enough, you may be able to use the phone once a month when you're locked up in solitary confinement. And they use that as a mean to break you, and that's basically what it's all about. And you do go through a lot of psychological trauma when you're isolated from other human beings. But human beings have to interact with human beings. It's only natural that we do that. So when you lock someone up, it's like a dog being locked up to a chain for 5-10 years in the backyard, and you let this dog loose. The dog is going to run wild. It's going to go crazy because it's been locked up for so long. It doesn't know what to do. And that's basically what it's all about. So I'm here. I'm actually representing the defenders. I'm also representing the Universal Negro Improvement Association African Communities League, an organization founded by the Right Excellent Marcus Josiah Garvey, and November Coalition, which is an organization out of Collegeville, Washington, who's working to end the war on drugs. I know most of y'all are aware that the United States is the world leading jailer, 2.5 million, and growing. No other civilization in the history of mankind has ever locked up that many people at one time. So they call this the land of the free. And excuse me, but one of my favorite writers, activist, Jack Herer, who's the late Jack Herer, who wrote The Emperor Wears No Clothes, he calls this the land of the P. Because in order to get a job today, you can have a master's degree, a PhD, but if you cannot piss in this bottle and make it clear, you're not going to get the job in the United States of America. So this is definitely not the land of the free. Like Jack said, this is the land of the P. And the prison population is a way to control the labor force, not just on the outside, but on the inside and on a global scale. Because if you lock up people and you can pay them 6, 8 cents, 13 cents an hour, that reduces the working wages out here for the regular people out here. A lot of people think because they don't think that the prison population directly affects them, but it does. It affects all of us because that's a lot of money wasted locking up human beings that shouldn't be locked up. They find every year basically they find new ways and new laws to lock people up in the United States. And we do need some type of coalition to combat all this destruction of human lives. And before I close, I'd just like to say that there are a lot of political prisoners locked away in the United States of America, probably more than any country in the United States. And one of them is Momir Abu-Jamal, one of them is Leonard Peltier, and another one is Dr. York, just to name a few. All of them are locked up because they stood up against the machine, basically, and tried to wake the people up and let them know that you may think you're free because you get to walk around the streets, but you're not free. The 13th Amendment clearly made that a law that if you commit any kind of crime that they decide that it's a crime, you're basically a slave in the United States. And you're still a slave once you become an indebted person. Once you get that credit card, you go into debt, then you become a slave to that job if you're fortunate enough to get a job here in the United States that's paying you less now than ever before. And I thank you, and I stand in solidarity with all of y'all. Peace.
I'm going to be your hype guy. If you guys are angry, which I'm pretty sure you are because you're here, give me a good arr! Arr! All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go down, 9th Street? Yep. Then we're going to take a right at Lee where lockup is right there. Then we're going to go up 10th Street on to Broad. We're going to have pots and pans. I've got a couple little chants here if you guys want to look over them, or I can just yell them. Other than that, I want to reiterate a fact that I learned today when I watched this thing this morning. The average stay at a federal penitentiary that has someone in a solitary confinement is 531 days at a maximum security prison. Imagine that. In a room for that long. That is one of the things that, you know, pissed me off the most. So I just thought you guys should know that. Let's see, I have a couple other statistics. How many people die that actually killed them? So 213 suicides for 2006 in solitary in America, the U.S. Let's see, I had 7% of the prison population at any time in America is in solitary confinement. That's a big number. I don't know how many people that is, but that's a pretty genie big number. And a lot of those people were put in there in the first place due to mental illness because they weren't diagnosed by outside psychiatrists. Basically, it's the same way that you know, seed companies audit themselves over damage that they do to the environment. It makes money, and essentially that's the problem because money comes before people. And who's ever ready? Let's do this.
Before you go, I want to say a few words to segue from what this brother said about the average day. It's about 531 days. There's a small group of Rastafarians for whom I have been fighting for the last 14 years. They've been in segregation. It will be 14 years, December 16, 2012. 14 years. And they even went so far as the rule is that you are not to be double bunked in segregation. They went so far to double bunk them in a space that's not big enough for one person. They had two individuals. A couple of the Rastas have since come forward. They've made exodus, as we say. They still cannot deal with society. One brother that I stay in contact with almost every other week, he has problems communicating. He cannot look people in their eyes when he's talking to them. So there are long-term effects that still occur even after you leave segregation. And I want to add to the list that Brother Kwame made Russell Maroon show. I think as a distinction of being the longest held inmate in segregation, I think he's coming up on his third decade, is it not? And if we can imagine how deprived we feel after only a few days of being alone, if you can imagine the psychological damage, study after study has shown how that type of deprivation can affect you long-term, even the smallest things. When this roster came out, this will be, I think, his second year. It was his second year in January. Things that we have no problem with. I think he had a cell phone. He lost about 5 cell phones in maybe 2 or 3 months because he wasn't used to having those types of electronics or whatever, or any type of means of keeping in touch with people. And he had to go back in just that short 14 years and relearn so much because he had been deprived of that external stimuli for 12 years when he came forward. So I want you all to keep in mind, for one thing, I'm grateful to see everybody here today, but you can't just leave here and go back to your regular lives. You've got to be committed to this, and you've got to speak up. Every time you get the opportunity to speak up, I don't care who sees me speaking. I don't care what kind of file has been started on me. I don't care. I believe in what I'm doing, and you've got to take that spirit with you when you leave here. Don't just march and forget about it or talk to your friends. Oh yeah, we marched down to the jail and we did this and we did that. If you're in it, you got to be in it for the long haul.
Solitary is scary. Torture's not reform. Solitary is scary. Torture's not reform. Solitary is scary. Torture's not reform. Solitary is not reform. Solitary is scary. Torture's not reform. Solitary is scary. Torture's not reform. Solitary is scary. It's farther than that. Sir! 531 days! Solitary in jail is wrong! We won't stop till we see it done! We won't stop till we see it done!
of